At our family gathering, my son-in-law made a speech about success. I'm Samuel Bennett, and I listened quietly. When Trevor Hayes stood up and told 47 family members that some people from older generations settled for ordinary, he was looking directly at me. He said his children needed to understand the difference between working hard and working smart, talking about their grandfather. Then he recorded that speech and posted it online for his professional network to see. He thought he was making a point about achievement. Trevor had no idea what he'd just started. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This is the story of what happens when someone judges a book by its cover, and why the quiet ones are often the most dangerous. But let me start from the beginning. For 3 years, Trevor treated me like I was beneath him. It started small. Little comments about my work boots at family dinners. Jokes about my union membership, but it escalated, fast. At Nicole's college graduation in 2022, Trevor actually moved seats so he wouldn't be photographed next to me. Said he didn't want his LinkedIn contacts seeing him with someone in a steelworkers local 556 jacket. My daughter, his wife, just sat there, silent. Then came my grandson Tyler, named after his father. 8 years old, bright as a penny. Used to love visiting my workshop, watching me restore vintage machinery. Trevor put a stop to that. I don't want my son exposed to that environment, he told Nicole. It's not the image we're building for our family. The boy stopped calling me Grandpa Sam, started calling me Sir when Trevor was around. When Trevor wasn't there, Tyler would whisper, "Dad says your job isn't important." That cut deep. See, I'd spent 35 years in manufacturing. Started as a floor worker at Bennett Steel in 1987. Worked my way up through the union ranks. Became shop steward, then local president, then regional coordinator. Along the way, I learned every aspect of the business. Purchasing, logistics, quality control, supplier relationships. Most people think union guys just fight for better wages. We do that. But we also understand the business better than most executives. We know which suppliers deliver on time, which ones cut corners, which machinery needs replacement before it fails. I use that knowledge wisely. By 2018, I owned minority stakes in 3 different manufacturing companies. By 2021, I'd quietly acquired controlling interests in 2 plants that specialized in precision components for tech companies. Nobody knew except my lawyer and my accountant. Trevor certainly didn't know. To him, I was just the blue-collar embarrassment who married into his wife's family before he could prevent it. The guy who showed up to corporate events in steel-toed boots and a 20-year-old truck. But the disrespect kept escalating. Last Christmas, Trevor announced he was hiring a private investigator to do background checks on anyone spending time around his son. "Can't be too careful these days," he said, looking directly at me. "You never know what kind of people might have access to a child." Nicole said nothing. At my granddaughter Emma's birthday party in March, Trevor stood up during his toast and said, "I want Emma to know she can be anything she wants. Doctor, lawyer, engineer. Not everyone in this family made those kinds of choices, but that doesn't mean she has to settle." The room went quiet. 15 family members staring at their plates. I should have said something then, should have drawn the line, but I kept quiet, kept taking it, because I thought family peace was more important than my pride. I was wrong. The pattern was clear. Trevor didn't just disrespect my work. He was systematically erasing my relationship with my grandchildren, teaching them to be ashamed of me, of where they came from. But Trevor had made one critical mistake. He never bothered to research who he was disrespecting. Never asked what I actually did during those 35 years in worthless manual labor. If he had, he might have discovered that his company, Precision Flow Technologies, sourced 67% of its critical components from 3 manufacturing plants that I owned. By June 2024, I was losing my family piece by piece. My grandson Tyler, the one named after his father, had completely stopped visiting. When I called, he'd answer with one-word responses. Fine. Yeah. No. Trevor had trained him well. My granddaughter Emma was heading down the same path. At 9 years old, she'd started asking her mother why Grandpa Sam never did anything important with his life. That phrase, anything important, came straight from Trevor's mouth. The breaking point came during Emma's school career day in early June. She was supposed to bring a family member to talk about their job. For 3 years running, she'd asked me to come speak about manufacturing, about how things get built. This year, she didn't ask. When I called Nicole to volunteer, she got quiet. Dad, maybe it's better if Trevor goes this year. He can talk about entrepreneurship, innovation. The kids relate to that better. 20 minutes later, I saw Trevor's LinkedIn post. Photo of him with Emma, both wearing matching Precision Flow Technologies polo shirts. Caption read, "Teaching the next generation that success comes from vision and education, not just hard work." Not just hard work. Like hard work was something to apologize for. I sat in my truck outside Emma's school that day, watching through the fence as Trevor gave his presentation. Watched my granddaughter's face light up as he talked about building the future. Watched her look embarrassed when someone asked if anyone else in her family worked in technology. "My grandpa used to work in factories," she said, voice barely audible. "But that's different." Used to work. That night I tried calling Emma to congratulate her on the presentation. Nicole answered instead. "Dad, maybe give it a few days. Trevor thinks, well, he thinks you might be confusing the kids about what success looks like." Confusing them how? "He thinks they need clear role models, people who've achieved something meaningful." Something meaningful. 35 years building the infrastructure that keeps America running wasn't meaningful. Providing jobs for 847 families across 3 counties wasn't meaningful. Building companies from the ground up wasn't meaningful. But creating an app that optimized supply chain logistics? That was meaningful. The irony was almost funny. I started adding up what I was losing by staying silent. My relationship with Tyler, gone. Emma heading the same direction. Nicole caught in the middle, choosing her husband's comfort over her father's dignity. But it went deeper than family relationships. Trevor was rewriting our family history, teaching my grandchildren that their grandfather was a failure, a cautionary tale. Someone to move beyond, not someone to learn from. At the current rate, I'd be a stranger at my own grandchildren's weddings. They'd introduce me as Mom's dad who worked in factories, if they introduced me at all. The financial stakes were smaller but still real. Trevor had started excluding me from family investment opportunities. "These are for people with business experience," he'd say. Last month, he'd pitched Nicole on pulling money out of my retirement fund to invest in his next venture. "Your dad's playing it too safe," he told her. "Conservative investments are for people who don't understand how real wealth gets built." Nicole was starting to listen. I could see the future clearly. In 5 years, I'd be the family embarrassment they tolerated at holidays. In 10 years, I'd be the grandfather the kids barely knew, the one with the sad story about wasting his potential. Trevor was betting that I'd never fight back, that I'd keep taking his disrespect because I valued family harmony more than self-respect. He was about to learn how wrong he was. 641 640th words. Underscore, 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 underscore. The first direct confrontation happened on June 28th at Nicole's house. I'd stopped by to drop off Emma's birthday present. A vintage toolbox I'd restored, filled with real tools sized for her hands. Teaching tools. The kind that show kids how things actually work. Trevor was in the garage on a conference call. When he saw me through the window, he held up one finger, made me wait outside like a delivery driver. 20 minutes later, he emerged. "Sam, wasn't expecting you. Wanted to give Emma her present." He glanced at the toolbox. "Is that used tools? Restored tools, teaching tools." "Right." He pulled out his phone, started scrolling. "Listen, while you're here, we need to talk." The tone was all wrong. Not family discussion. Boss to employee. Nicole and I have been talking about boundaries. What kind of boundaries? The kids need consistency, clear messages about success, about priorities. He pocketed his phone, looked directly at me. "Your influence is confusing them." My influence. "They need to understand that education matters, that there are different levels of achievement in life." Different levels. Come on, Sam, you know what I mean. I've built a multi-million-dollar company. You worked for other people your whole life. There it was, the truth he'd been dancing around for 3 years. "You think I'm a failure. I think you made choices. I made different choices. What choices did I make that were wrong? You could have gone to college, could have aimed higher. Instead, You settled for manual labor. Manual labor that fed my family for 35 years. Barely. I've seen your tax returns, Sam. Nicole showed me when we were planning the kids' college funds. You never broke 6 figures. Not once. The dismissal in his voice was surgical, clean, professional. Money isn't everything, Trevor. It's a scoreboard. It's how the world measures contribution. Is that what you're teaching Tyler and Emma? That people are worth what they earn? I'm teaching them that choices matter. That effort isn't enough if it's not applied intelligently. And my effort wasn't intelligent. Your effort was admirable, for what it was. I felt something shift inside me, a line being crossed. Trevor, you need to be careful here. Careful of what? We're family. We should be honest with each other. Honest? Nicole wants the kids to respect you. I want that too. But respect has to be earned by accomplishment, not just by showing up. What accomplishments would qualify? Building something, creating value, taking risks that matter. Like your company. Exactly like my company. Precision Flow Technologies didn't exist 4 years ago. Now we employ 94 people. We're changing how supply chains work. With what capital? My capital, my vision, my network. Your suppliers. What about them? Where do your components come from? Various sources. Why? Just curious about your supply chain. He laughed. Sam, supply chain management is pretty complex. It's not really something... Something what? Something that would interest you. No offense. None taken. But offense was taken. Deep offense. Listen, Trevor, I need you to hear something clearly. What's that? I've given you 3 years of respect you haven't earned. His expression changed. Excuse me? You heard me. Sam, I think you're overstepping here. Am I? You're a guest in my home. Nicole's father or not, you don't get to talk to me like that. How should I talk to you? With the recognition that I've built something you never could. There it was again. The fundamental disrespect. Trevor, you don't know what I've built. I know exactly what you've built. A union pension and a 20-year-old truck. Is that all you see? That's all there is to see. Wrong answer. We're done here. Done with what? This conversation, this dynamic, this disrespect. Sam, calm down. You're being dramatic. Am I being dramatic when you exclude me from family photos? When you teach my grandchildren to be ashamed of me? When you research my tax returns without my permission? Those are practical considerations. For who? For everyone. The kids need role models who've achieved something significant. And I haven't achieved anything significant. Not compared to what's possible today. The economy has changed, Sam. Manual labor isn't valuable anymore. We'll see about that. I picked up the toolbox, started walking toward my truck. Sam, where are you going? Home. Don't make this bigger than it is. I stopped, turned around. Trevor, you just made it exactly as big as it needed to be. 799 800ths words. Underscore, 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 underscore. That night, I sat in my home office, staring at files I hadn't opened in months. 43 years of documentation. Union contracts, business partnerships, acquisition papers, supplier agreements. A lifetime of building relationships Trevor couldn't see because he'd never looked. The first seed I planted was a phone call to Charles Griffin. Charles had been Local 556 president for 8 years, before that shop steward for 12. We'd negotiated 17 major contracts together, weathered 4 work stoppages, saved 11 companies from bankruptcy through creative restructuring. Sam, it's been too long. How's retirement treating you? Complicated, Charles. I need to ask you something. Shoot. Do you remember the Hartwell Industries acquisition in 2019? Pause. Of course I remember. You put up 60% of the capital, saved 127 jobs. And the Patterson Components buyout? Another Sam Bennett special. Took a failing operation, turned it profitable in 18 months. Charles, what would happen if both those companies suddenly lost their biggest client? Sam, what's going on? Just answer the question. They'd survive. Hartwell's got 6 major contracts now. Patterson's diversified into automotive and aerospace. Why? Their biggest client has been disrespecting the wrong people. Ah, Charles understood immediately. Family problem? Family problem. How big is this client?
Big enough to notice when the supply chain disappears? Sam, you sure about this? Whatever you're planning? I'm sure about what I won't tolerate anymore. What do you need from me? Documentation, ownership papers, board meeting minutes, everything clean and legal. When? Soon, maybe very soon. I'll get Elizabeth Foster involved. She's got all the current paperwork. Elizabeth. Perfect. The second seed was smaller but equally important.
I drove to the Patterson Components plant at 6 a.m. the next morning. Elizabeth Foster was already there, had been for an hour. She ran operations like a Swiss watch, had since I'd promoted her to plant manager in 2020. Mr. Bennett, good to see you. What brings you out here so early? Inspection, Elizabeth. Friendly inspection. Everything's running smooth. Third quarter's looking strong. What about Precision Flow Technologies? Your friend's company? They're actually our biggest single client now. 43% of our monthly output. My friend? Your son-in-law, right? Trevor Hayes? What makes you think he's my friend? Elizabeth caught the tone. I assumed. Elizabeth, Trevor Hayes doesn't know I exist in any business capacity. Oh, she understood immediately. Oh my. What kind of contract terms does Precision Flow have with us? Standard commercial, 30-day payment terms, 60-day termination clause for convenience. 60 days? Could be shorter if there's cause, contract violation, payment default, that sort of thing. Elizabeth, I want you to review that contract very carefully. Looking for anything specific? Anything that might constitute cause for immediate termination? Mr. Bennett, is there something I should know? There's something Trevor Hayes should have known 3 years ago, which is who he was disrespecting. That afternoon, I took a drive through my industrial empire. First stop, Hartwell Industries, 285,000 square feet of precision manufacturing, CNC machines worth $12 million, 156 employees who'd kept their jobs because I'd stepped in when the original owners faced bankruptcy. Their biggest client? Precision Flow Technologies, 38% of monthly revenue. Second stop, Patterson Components, smaller operation but specialized. They made the micro-precision parts that allowed Precision Flow's software to interface with physical hardware without Patterson's components. Trevor's revolutionary supply chain optimization system was just expensive code. Their contract with Precision Flow? Worth $450,000 monthly. Third stop, my attorney's office. Sam, good to see you. What can I do for you? I need you to review some contracts, Jonathan. Business relationships that might need adjusting. What kind of adjusting? The kind where someone learns that respect isn't optional. Family issue. Business issue. Family was just the trigger. Jonathan Pierce had handled my business affairs for 15 years. He'd structured the Hartwell acquisition, negotiated the Patterson buyout, maintained the legal fiction that Sam Bennett, the union retiree, and Sam Bennett, the industrial investor, were two different people. Jonathan, if I wanted to terminate supplier relationships with a specific company, what would be the cleanest approach? Depends on the contracts. Most business relationships can be ended with proper notice. How much notice? 60 days is standard. Less if there's breach of contract or cause. What constitutes cause? Payment delays, quality issues, contract violations, or simply mutual agreement that the relationship isn't working. And if the other party objects? Business is business, Sam. As long as you follow the contract terms, their objections don't matter. What if they try to sue? For what? Fulfilling contract obligations? Sam, you're not required to do business with people who don't respect you. That evening, I sat in my truck outside Trevor's office building. Precision Flow Technologies occupied the entire 14th floor. Glass walls, modern furniture, employees younger than my grandchildren. Through the windows, I could see Trevor in a conference room, gesturing at charts, building his empire. An empire that depended entirely on 3 manufacturing plants. Plants he'd never visited, owners he'd never met, supply chain relationships he'd never questioned. Trevor was about to learn the first rule of business: know who you depend on. But not yet. First, he was going to learn the cost of disrespecting family at a public gathering. I started the truck and drove home. Tomorrow was July 4th. Independence Day seemed like the perfect time for Trevor to discover just how dependent he really was. July 4th, 2024, 2:15 p.m., the Westchester County Community Park, 47 family members spread across 12 picnic tables. Red, white, and blue tablecloths. The smell of barbecue and the sound of kids playing. My grandson Tyler throwing a football with his cousins. Emma showing off her face painting to anyone who'd listen. A perfect family gathering. Until Trevor decided to give a speech. "Can I get everyone's attention?" Trevor stood up, beer in hand, smartphone already recording. "I want to say something about family, about legacy, about what we're building together." The conversations died down. 47 pairs of eyes focused on him. Nicole and I have been talking about what kind of example we want to set for Tyler and Emma, what kind of values we want to pass down. I was sitting at the far table with my sister Margaret and her husband, far enough away to avoid awkwardness, close enough to hear every word. We live in an amazing time. Technology is changing everything. The opportunities available to our kids are incredible. They can literally build companies from ideas, create value from innovation. Tyler and Emma moved closer to their father, drawn by his confidence. But here's what I want them to understand. Success requires vision. It requires education. It requires taking risks that matter. His eyes found mine across the gathering. Not everyone in our family made those kinds of choices. Some people from older generations, they did the best they could with what they knew. Blue-collar work, union jobs, playing it safe. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. And that's fine. That's admirable, in its way. Margaret grabbed my arm. "Sam, don't. But I don't want Tyler and Emma to think that's enough anymore. I don't want them to settle for ordinary when they could achieve something extraordinary." The gathering had gone completely silent. Even the kids stopped playing. "I built Precision Flow Technologies from nothing. 4 years ago, it was just an idea. Today, we employ 94 people. We're revolutionizing supply chain management. We're creating real value." Nicole looked mortified. She knew what was coming. "That's the kind of vision I want for our kids. Building something that matters. Not just showing up to work every day for 30 years, but actually changing the world." He raised his beer, smile bright as stage lights. "So here's to the next generation. Here's to Tyler and Emma, learning that there's a difference between working hard and working smart. Here's to them understanding that success is measured by what you build, not just how many years you survive." He looked directly at me. "And here's to them never being satisfied with being ordinary." The silence was deafening. 47 family members staring at their plates, my sister's grip tightening on my arm, Nicole's face red with embarrassment, Tyler and Emma looking confused, sensing the tension but not understanding it. Trevor took a long drink, checked his phone to make sure the video was still recording, posted it to LinkedIn while standing there. "Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Happy 4th of July, everyone." He sat down. The conversations restarted slowly, awkwardly. I stood up. "Margaret, I need to make a phone call. Sam, please don't do anything stupid." "This isn't stupid, Margaret. This is overdue." I walked to my truck, pulled out my phone, dialed Charles Griffin's number. "Sam, how's the family gathering?" "Charles, it's time." "Time for what?" "Time for Trevor Hayes to learn who he's been disrespecting." "What do you need?" "I need you and Elizabeth at the park in 1 hour. Bring the documentation we discussed." "All of it?" "All of it. Ownership papers, supply contracts, financial statements, everything." "Sam, are you sure about this? Once you do this, there's no taking it back." I looked across the park at Trevor, who was now holding court with the younger family members, explaining his business philosophy to anyone who'd listen. "Charles, I've spent 3 years taking his disrespect because I thought family peace was more important than my dignity. And now? Now he just humiliated me in front of 47 family members and posted it online for his professional network to see." "What did he say?" "He said I settled for ordinary. Said I survived 30 years instead of building something that matters. Said the next generation shouldn't be satisfied with being like me." "Oh. Oh my." "In front of my grandchildren, Charles. He told my grandchildren their grandfather was a cautionary tale. I'll get Elizabeth. We'll be there in 45 minutes. Make it 30. I hung up, walked back to the gathering. Nicole approached me immediately. "Dad, I'm so sorry. Trevor didn't mean—" "Yes, he did. He's just passionate about success. He doesn't think before he speaks sometimes." "Nicole, your husband just told 47 people that your father wasted his life." "He didn't say that exactly. He said I settled for ordinary, that I survived instead of building." That your children shouldn't be satisfied with being like me. Dad. And he recorded it, posted it online. Nicole's face went pale. He posted it? Check his LinkedIn. She pulled out her phone, scrolled, found the video. Her expression shifted from embarrassed to horrified. Oh my God. Dad, I didn't know he was recording. Would it have mattered? Of course it would have mattered. Would you have stopped him? She hesitated. I don't know. Nicole, in 30 minutes, some people are going to arrive at this gathering. They're going to have documents with them. When you see those documents, you're going to understand why your husband's speech was the biggest mistake of his business career. What are you talking about? You're going to learn something about your father that Trevor should have learned 3 years ago. Dad, what's going on? What's going on is that your husband has been disrespecting someone who controls his entire supply chain. His what? Trevor thinks he built his company from nothing. He thinks he's a self-made success story. He thinks the old man in steel-toed boots is beneath his notice. Dad, you're scaring me. Trevor should be scared because he just publicly humiliated the man who owns 67% of his manufacturing capacity. Nicole stared at me. What are you saying? I'm saying your husband doesn't know who he's been talking to for 3 years. At 2:47 p.m., a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. Charles Griffin and Elizabeth Foster got out, each carrying a briefcase. Time for Trevor to meet his business partners. Charles Griffin was exactly what you'd expect from a union president. 6'2", broad shoulders, calloused hands that could run a board meeting or operate a crane. Elizabeth Foster was his opposite, 5'4", sharp suit, the kind of precision that comes from managing complex operations under pressure. Together, they represented 43 years of industrial partnerships. Sam, Charles extended his hand, beautiful day for a family gathering. Charles. Elizabeth. Thank you for coming. Elizabeth glanced around the park, taking in the picnic tables, the families, the decorations. This is not where I expected to have this conversation. Sometimes the conversation comes to you. Where's Mr. Hayes? I pointed toward the main pavilion where Trevor was explaining something enthusiastically to a circle of relatives, his hands moving, his voice carrying across the park, completely confident in his own importance. Should we approach him directly? Elizabeth asked. Not yet. First, I want his wife to understand what she's about to see. Nicole was watching us from her table, confusion and worry written across her face. I gestured for her to join us. Nicole, I'd like you to meet Charles Griffin and Elizabeth Foster. Hello. Nicole shook their hands, clearly puzzled. Charles is the president of Steelworkers Local, 556. Elizabeth is the plant manager at Patterson Components. Okay. They're here because your husband has been publicly disrespecting their business partner. Their business partner? Charles opened his briefcase, pulled out a manila folder. Mrs. Hayes, are you familiar with your father's business activities? His what? He's retired. From union leadership, yes, but not from business ownership. Elizabeth joined in. Mrs. Hayes, Patterson Components is one of 3 manufacturing facilities that supply critical components to your husband's company. I don't understand. Your father owns Patterson Components. He also owns Hartwell Industries and controls a 67% stake in the entire supply network that keeps Precision Flow Technologies operational. Nicole stared at the folder in Charles's hands. That's not possible. It's not only possible, it's documented. Charles opened the folder, revealed the first page. Stock certificates, acquisition papers, board meeting minutes. Your father has been building an industrial portfolio for 15 years. Dad, Nicole turned to me. Is this true? It's true. But you never said anything. I never needed to say anything. Until now. Elizabeth pulled out her own documentation. Mrs. Hayes, your husband's company depends entirely on 3 suppliers. We are those suppliers. Without our components, Precision Flow Technologies cannot function. How much of their business? 67% of their critical supply chain, 43% of Patterson Components revenue, 38% of Hartwell Industries' monthly output. Nicole's face went white. Trevor doesn't know this. No, he doesn't, I said. Trevor thinks I'm a retired factory worker with a union pension and a 20-year-old truck. Because that's what you told him. Because that's all he cared to know. Trevor never asked about my business activities, never wondered how a worthless factory worker could afford to help you with your down payment 3 years ago. That was your business money? $47,000 from Patterson Components quarterly distributions. Charles was watching the conversation with professional interest. Mrs. Hayes, your father is one of the most respected business leaders in this region. The Hartwell acquisition saved 127 jobs. The Patterson buyout prevented a plant closure that would have devastated 3 counties. Then why didn't you tell people? Because I didn't need recognition. I needed results. By now, several family members had noticed our conversation. The briefcases, the formal documents, the serious tone. They were starting to drift closer. Trevor noticed too. He excused himself from his circle of admirers and walked over, smile intact but eyes cautious.
Nicole, everything okay over here? Trevor, this is Charles Griffin and Elizabeth Foster. Nice to meet you both. Are you friends of Sam's? Charles extended his hand. Business associates, actually. Sam has business associates. Mr. Hayes, I'm the president of Steelworkers Local 556. Miss Foster manages Patterson Components. Patterson Components? Trevor's expression shifted slightly. Wait, you're our supplier. We are indeed. Small world. Sam, I had no idea you knew people in the industry. Elizabeth smiled politely. Mr. Hayes, we don't just know Mr. Bennett. We work for him. Work for him? I'm the plant manager at Patterson Components. Mr. Bennett is the majority owner. The color drained from Trevor's face. That's not possible. Charles opened his briefcase wider, pulled out a thick stack of documents. Mr. Hayes, these are the ownership papers for Patterson Components, dated December 2021. Purchase price, $2.3 million. Buyer, Samuel Bennett. Sam, I looked at Trevor calmly. Yes? You own Patterson Components? I own Patterson Components. I also own Hartwell Industries. Together, those 2 companies provide 67% of your supply chain. Trevor's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. But you're retired. From union leadership, not from business. You work in factories. I own factories. The family members who'd been drifting closer were now listening intently. Margaret, my brother-in-law Steve, Nicole's cousins. The circle was expanding. Elizabeth pulled out another set of documents. Mr. Hayes, perhaps you'd like to review your supplier contracts? Why would I want to? Because they all contain 60-day termination clauses, for convenience. Termination clauses? Standard business practice. Either party can end the relationship with proper notice. Trevor's confidence was evaporating in real time.
Why are you telling me this? Charles stepped forward. Because 45 minutes ago you gave a speech about ordinary people who settle for ordinary accomplishments. You were talking about Sam Bennett, our business partner, the man who signs our paychecks. You were talking about my father, Nicole added, her voice tight with anger. In front of 47 family members? Trevor looked around the circle of faces, all watching him, all waiting. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked, I said quietly. For 3 years you've been disrespecting someone without bothering to learn who they are. Sam, I'm sorry, Trevor, do you remember what you said 10 minutes ago? I was just trying to motivate the kids. You said I settled for ordinary. You said I survived 30 years instead of building something that matters. I didn't mean it personally.
You said your children shouldn't be satisfied with being like me.
Sam, please.
Elizabeth cleared her throat. Mr. Hayes, would you like to know what Mr. Bennett built during those ordinary 30 years? Trevor didn't answer. He built the infrastructure that keeps your company operational, the supply relationships that make your innovation possible, the manufacturing capacity that turns your software into physical products. Without Mr. Bennett's manufacturing network, Charles added, Precision Flow Technologies is just expensive code. The silence stretched across the gathering. 47 family members watching Trevor realize that the man he'd been humiliating for 3 years controlled his entire business empire. Sam, Trevor's voice was barely audible. I had no idea. I know you didn't. If I had known, you would have what? Respected me because of my net worth instead of disrespecting me because of my background? That's not what I meant. Trevor, what you meant was that blue-collar work is beneath you.
That manual labor is for people who lack vision. That your children should be ashamed of their grandfather. I never said they should be ashamed. You recorded yourself saying it, posted it online. Nicole pulled out her phone. Trevor, how many people have seen that video? Trevor checked his LinkedIn notifications. 238 views, 15 comments. What kind of comments? Trevor's face went even paler as he read. They're asking about my supply chain strategy, about my manufacturing partnerships. Trevor, I said quietly, in approximately 15 minutes, some of those 238 people are going to receive a very interesting press release. What press release? Charles smiled. The one announcing that Bennett Industries is restructuring its supplier relationships, effective immediately. What does restructuring supplier relationships mean exactly? Trevor's voice cracked slightly. Elizabeth Foster answered with the precision of someone who'd delivered difficult news before. It means Patterson Components and Hartwell Industries are terminating their contracts with Precision Flow Technologies, effective July 8th. That's 4 days from now. Correct. You can't do that. Charles Griffin pulled out a highlighted contract. Article 12, Section 3. Either party may terminate this agreement with 72 hours' notice if the business relationship is no longer mutually beneficial. 72 hours? Mr. Hayes, when you publicly state that your supplier's background is ordinary and that your children shouldn't be satisfied with being like him, the relationship becomes problematic. Trevor looked around desperately. Sam, this is business. You can't mix business with personal issues. Trevor, you mixed them first. You used your business success to justify disrespecting me personally. That's different. How is it different? I built my company. I earned the right to have opinions about success. With my components, using my manufacturing capacity, depending on my supply chain. Nicole stepped between us. Dad, maybe we should discuss this privately. Nicole, we've had 3 years of private discussions. Your husband just made this public. But destroying his company won't solve anything. I'm not destroying his company. I'm exercising my legal right to choose my business partners. Elizabeth opened her briefcase again. Mrs. Hayes, these are the termination letters, fully legal, properly documented, signed by the appropriate authorities. She handed copies to Trevor. 3 identical letters, each bearing the letterhead of a different company, each ending the same way. Effective 12:01 a.m., July 8th, 2024, this agreement is terminated. Trevor read through them frantically. Sam, please, we can work this out.
Work what out? This misunderstanding, this family issue. Trevor, this isn't a misunderstanding. You clearly stated your opinion of my life's work, in front of my family. I was trying to motivate the kids, by using their grandfather as a negative example. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry. Sorry isn't enough anymore. Charles checked his watch. Mr. Hayes, you should know that these terminations will be announced in a joint press release at 4 p.m. today. A press release? Standard practice. Other manufacturers will want to know about available supply chain capacity. You're going to announce this publicly? 3 manufacturing plants suddenly have 67% of their capacity available. That's industry news. Trevor's phone started buzzing. Text messages, emails, LinkedIn notifications. The video is going viral, he whispered, reading his screen. 1,600 views now.
What are people saying? Nicole asked. Trevor's face went gray. Someone recognized Charles and Elizabeth in the background. They're asking why union leadership is at my family gathering. Elizabeth smiled. Social media is fascinating. Information spreads so quickly. Sam, please, my company employs 94 people. I know. I read your LinkedIn posts. Those are good people. They have families. Trevor, did you consider that when you were humiliating me? That's not the same thing. Isn't it? You were perfectly willing to damage my relationship with my family. Why should I protect your relationship with your employees? Charles cleared his throat. Mr. Hayes, if you're concerned about your employees, you should start making alternative supply arrangements immediately. Alternative arrangements? Other suppliers, different manufacturers. You have 72 hours. That's impossible. These components are specialized. The tooling, the specifications, the quality certifications. Yes, we're quite good at what we do. Trevor turned to me. desperation clear in his voice. Sam, what do you want? What would it take to reverse this? I want you to understand something, Trevor. Anything. For 3 years you've treated me like I was worthless, like my work didn't matter, like my life was a cautionary tale. I understand that now. Do you? Because 5 minutes ago you were still defending your right to have those opinions. I was wrong. You were wrong about what? About not respecting you. Why should you respect me, Trevor? Because you own my suppliers. Wrong answer. Elizabeth Foster shook her head. Mr. Hayes, you still don't understand. Understand what? You should respect Mr. Bennett because he's your family, because he's earned respect through 35 years of building something that matters, because he's a decent man who deserved better treatment. Not because he owns companies, Charles added, because he's worthy of respect as a human being. Trevor stared at both of them. But if he'd told me about the companies, then you would have respected his money instead of his character, Nicole said quietly. Dad wanted you to respect him for who he is, not what he owns. Trevor's phone buzzed again, then again. The notifications were accelerating. Trevor, I said calmly, you have approximately 96 hours to find new suppliers. I suggest you start making phone calls. I turned and walked back toward my truck. The gathering was over. The press release went live at exactly 4 p.m. Bennett Industries announces supply chain restructuring. 3 manufacturing partners terminate agreements with Precision Flow Technologies. By 6 p.m., Trevor's LinkedIn video had 4,200 views and 63 comments. By 8 p.m., local business reporters were calling for statements. I turned off my phone and spent the evening on my back porch drinking coffee and watching the sunset over Pittsburgh. At 9:15 p.m., Nicole called. Dad, Trevor's having a panic attack. He should call his doctor. Dad, please. His stock price dropped 37% in after-hours trading. Market volatility is common in small companies. 68% of his customer base is asking about supply chain stability. Smart customers, they should ask those questions. He can't find replacement suppliers with the same specifications. Trevor's a smart man. He'll figure it out. Dad, Nicole's voice broke. I think his company might not survive this. Companies fail every day, Nicole, usually because their leadership makes poor decisions. Please don't do this to him. I'm not doing anything to him. I'm choosing not to do business with someone who doesn't respect me. But the employees? The employees work for Trevor, not for me. Their job security is his responsibility. Dad, I'm begging you. Nicole, 3 hours ago, your husband told 47 family members that your father was a failure. He posted it online for his professional network to see. He apologized. He apologized because he learned I own his suppliers, not because he realized he was wrong. What's the difference? The difference is character. The next morning brought more consequences. Charles Griffin called at 7:30 a.m. Sam, you should see the business news. What are they saying? Precision Flow Technologies stock opened at $6, closed yesterday at $23, market correction. 3 employees called our union hall asking about jobs. Are we hiring? Patterson's looking for 12 people. Hartwell needs 8. Good. Make sure those applications get priority review. Sam, what about Mr. Hayes? What about him? Industry sources say he's reached out to 17 different suppliers. None can match our quality specifications. Interesting. He's offering 20% above market rate for emergency contracts. Desperation pricing. Sam, the man's drowning. Charles, 3 days ago, Trevor Hayes told my granddaughter that her grandfather settled for ordinary. Today, he's learning what ordinary really looks like. By Wednesday, July 8th, the terminations were official. Elizabeth Foster called with the operational update. Mr. Hayes sent a team to collect their remaining inventory, $47,000 worth of components. That's roughly 2 weeks of production capacity for him. Correct. After that, Precision Flow Technologies will be unable to fulfill customer orders. Has he found alternative suppliers? None that meet his quality requirements. He's considering Chinese manufacturers, but the lead time is 16 weeks minimum. 16 weeks without revenue. Mr. Hayes will be bankrupt in 6 weeks. That afternoon, Trevor called me directly. Sam, I need to speak with you. You're speaking with me. In person, please. Why?
because I need to understand what it would take to restore our supplier relationship. Trevor, we don't have a supplier relationship. We never did. The companies, then. Your companies and my company. What makes you think there's anything to restore? Sam, I'll do anything. Anything you want. Anything? Yes. Apologize to your employees for risking their jobs by disrespecting your key supplier's family. I'll do it today. Apologize to my grandchildren for teaching them to be ashamed of their grandfather. Of course. Delete the LinkedIn video and post a public correction. Already done. Resign from any board positions that might give you a platform to disparage working-class families. Sam, and understand that none of those things will restore our business relationship. What? Trevor, you think this is about making you jump through hoops until I'm satisfied? It's not. Then what's it about? It's about consequences. For 3 years, you treated me with contempt. Now you're learning what it costs when you disrespect someone who has the power to affect your life. But if I do everything you asked, if you do everything I asked, you'll be a better person. But I still won't do business with someone who spent 3 years proving they have no character. Sam, please, 94 people will lose their jobs. Trevor, you should have thought about that before you decided family humiliation was worth a viral LinkedIn post. The call ended in silence. By Friday, July 10th, Precision Flow Technologies had laid off 68 employees. By Monday, July 13th, Trevor was meeting with bankruptcy attorneys. The market had spoken. Character matters. 3 weeks later, Tyler called me. Grandpa Sam, it's Tyler. Hello, Tyler. How are you? I'm confused about some things. What kind of things? Mom says you own companies. Dad says you ruined his business. Emma says she doesn't understand why everyone's upset. Tyler, what do you think happened? I think Dad said something mean about you, and then you got really mad. That's pretty close. Grandpa Sam, did you really own Dad's suppliers? I did. Why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted you to respect me for who I am, not what I own. But Dad always talked about how important money and success were. Money and success are fine, Tyler, but they're not the most important things. What's more important? Character, treating people with respect, understanding that everyone's work has value. Even factory work? Especially factory work. Where do you think your phone comes from? Your bike? Your house? Factories. Built by people your father called ordinary. Long pause. Grandpa Sam, can I come visit your workshop again? Tyler, you're always welcome, but you need to ask your parents. I already did. Mom said yes. Dad said he thinks he was wrong about a lot of things. 2 days later, Tyler and Emma spent the afternoon in my shop. We restored a 1967 Craftsman drill press, talked about how things work, how they're made, why precision matters. Nicole picked them up at 5 p.m. Dad, thank you for this. For what? For letting them see who you really are. Nicole, I've always been who I really am. I know. I'm sorry it took me so long to stand up for you. What about Trevor? Trevor's learning. His new company is smaller, but he says it's more honest. New company. He's doing supply chain consulting, helping manufacturers find reliable partnerships. Ironic. He says it is. He also says he finally understands what you were trying to teach him, which is that respect isn't something you earn through success. It's something you give because people deserve it. That evening I sat on my porch with Charles Griffin, sharing a beer and watching the neighborhood kids play baseball in the street. Any regrets, Sam? About what? Taking down Trevor's company. I didn't take down his company. I stopped enabling someone who didn't respect me. Fair point. Charles, do you know what the best part of this whole situation is? What's that? My grandchildren understand now that their grandfather isn't ordinary, that the work I did for 35 years mattered, that building things with your hands is just as valuable as building things with code. And Trevor? Trevor learned that success without character is just temporary luck. A month later, I received a handwritten letter. Sam, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know. I understand now why my children should be proud to be your grandchildren. I also understand why it took losing everything to learn that lesson. Thank you for teaching me what I should have learned 3 years ago. Trevor. I folded the letter, put it in my desk drawer, and went back to work. There's always something that needs building.
If you enjoyed this story, let me know where you're watching from. And remember, everyone's work has value. Everyone deserves respect, including you.